What if I told you the youngest UFC champion ever is just now entering his prime? Jon Jones, who at the age of 23 won his belt, is about to re-enter the ring in December to gain back the title that was stripped from him earlier last year. So Jon Jones has proven himself to be the greatest fighter to ever enter the octagon, and it's not even really close. As an avid UFC fan for the past few years, I'm pretty familiar with the accomplishments of all the greatest UFC fighters, and I don't think that their records even come close to Jon Jones. Now, most of you have heard about Conor McGregor. He's a person who transcends cultures and people alike. Because of Conor McGregor, it's easy for him to overshadow a lot of the fighters in the UFC. Something which is kind of unfortunate, especially when some of the other fighters' fight resumes, are far better than Conor McGregor's. One of those fighters being Jon Jones. It's easy to overlook him just because he's not in the spotlight. So what I'm going to talk about today are some of the reasons why I feel like Jon Jones doesn't get the credit that he deserves and the reason why he's the best to ever enter the octagon. I'm first going to talk about his accomplishments and then talk about the competition that he faced in the UFC, and then lastly finish off with the physical attributes that he brings to the octagon. Now, to start off with the accomplishments, he was the youngest UFC fighter, as I previously mentioned, at 23 years old. And according to Heightline.com, he defeated Mauricio Shogun Rua at light heavyweight. This was the first time that Mauricio Shogun Rua had ever been finished in his entire UFC career. So that's pretty crazy. Also, according to newsdaily.com, he defended his belt against top-level competition 9 different times. That's the most defenses by anybody since Tito Ortiz, with 5 times at light heavyweight. To this day, he still remains undefeated, with his only loss being a disqualification to Matt Hamill. And a little bit of backstory about that Matt Hamill fight: he was whooping his butt and had it mounted and threw an illegal elbow, and the ref stopped the fight and asked Matt Hamill if he was okay. Matt Hamill was a deaf fighter. Because he was deaf, he didn't hear the referee asking him and couldn't respond to him, and the referee called off the fight. This is something that Jon Jones is still trying to get appealed, but is the only loss on his record. Now, although he's managed to fly under the radar, you are going to get a chance to see him in December. He's fighting Alexander Gustafsson, who is his toughest test to date. He took him to a 5-round war and had really made Jon Jones pull out every weapon he had. So it's going to be a good one this December. Now, Alexander Gustafsson has never won the belt, but Jon Jones has defended it against multiple former champions. In his 9 title reigns, according to MMA Junkie, he's finished 6 former champs during his title reign. Now, according to the UFC.com, Jones has won 10 of his wins by knockout, 6 of his wins by submission, and 8 of them by decision. This is exciting to me because you never know how his fights are going to end, and I think that's pretty interesting. So he gets his wins through hard work, dedication, and his physical attributes. In the light heavyweight division, he's one of the tallest, standing at 6'4", and he's able to make that weight cut being so tall because of his skinny legs. He has huge, long arms and really skinny legs, and so his weight is proportioned really well for a fighter's body. For example, I'm 6'5" with a 78-inch wingspan. He's 6'4" with an 84.5-inch wingspan. I had an inch of height on him, and he still has 6.5 inches of reach on me. He's an anomaly in the fight game. Even though he's at light heavyweight, which is the second biggest weight in the UFC, he is tied for the longest reach in the entire UFC with Stefan Struve, who is 6'11". Now, according to BleacherReport.com, out of his last 4 opponents, he's averaged a 10-inch reach advantage during his fights. This is something that you have to take into account when you're talking about advantages in the fight game. It's set him apart from everybody in the division. Now, because of these reasons, I think Jon Jones is clearly the GOAT of the light heavyweight division. For those, the reasons I gave you were his physical attributes, his competition that he faced in the UFC and the achievements that he's already been able to do. Now, before I let you guys go, I want to ask you to look out for Jon Jones's next fight on December 29th. It's UFC 232, and it's against Alexander Gustafsson, who was his toughest fight to date. With this little bit of knowledge of Jon Jones and his career, I think it'll be much more interesting to the general public. Thank you.